Welcome to episode 3 of Mysteries of the Lake District. Excuse me. In this episode we shall explore the beast/vampire of Croglin. Over to our man in the field, Grill Bear.
Well, hello. We are looking for the Croglin vampire. Where could it be? We have, over there, 2 people in white suits at a crime scene. Let's go have a look. Excuse me! Excuse me! What is this?
Well, we have here the possible crime scene of the Croglin vampire.
Not the possible crime scene of the Croglin vampire!
I'm afraid so.
What? Why have we got this map?
Well, first of all, vampires are notoriously bad for having a very awful sense of direction. Therefore, a map suggests a vampire was here.
What about this cape?
Well, it's clearly a vampire's cape. A vampire never goes anywhere without their cape unless they are dead.
That is a very good point. What about the beer?
Well, if you look closely, we have a bottle of Croglin vampire beer. 8% volume, which is well known to be a vampire's favourite kind of beer.
What about the boost bar?
Ah, well, this is the best clue we have. The boost bar is vampire's favourite food, and if you look closely, there is this red substance, clearly
yes.
vampire blood, because of its high toxicity and low hemoglobin levels.
So would you say this crime scene has vampire written all over it?
Well, no, this crime scene doesn't, but this log does.
So you said that a vampire never leaves its cape unless it is dead. Where's it gone? And this poor panda here was the first attempt to try and kill the vampire. As the villagers thought that the panda was the vampire, they impaled it with this ridiculously big stake. We must go in search.
Over to Jeffrey, our resident folklorologist.
There are many tales on the island of the mighty, tales which are not always easy to understand, which we may search for proof of the facts. Our tale tonight is one such tale, the tale of Croglin Grange. So many people see in this tale similarities to Bram Stoker and his tale of Dracula. However, our story goes back much, much further. Exactly how much further is impossible to tell. Augustus Hare in 1875 wrote in his book In My Solitary Life about a Captain Fisher telling the story of the Croglin vampire. We may never know the truth and the facts behind this. However, this is a story which you will hear all over the world. Many people have used all sorts of ways of finding out the facts behind this thing. I have here an artifact of great intellectual curiosity, the famous vampire hunting device. How can this device be used to ascertain the facts of the Croglin vampire? Or is there something more important? Maybe the facts we will never know, but what is the truth behind this story? Thank you for coming here this dark, windy evening. Our story today is set not far from here. It's set in a village called Croglin. Croglin, as the bat flies, is about 25 miles from here. It's almost exactly halfway between Carlisle and Penrith. I want you to think back for what you might know of what life was like 100 years ago. Things were very different. And the family in our story are a family called the Cranwells. Now they, in the mid-late 19th century, had moved over to Australia where they become sheep farmers. And if you know your history, you will know that at that time there was an awful lot of money to be made from sheep farming, particularly in Australia. And they very quickly became very, very wealthy people. And after a number of years of being there and becoming fabulously rich, tragedy struck the family and the mum died. And so, although they continued being farmers for a couple of years, it still didn't hold the thrill that it had before, and the death of their mum made it hard to continue. So eventually, as rich people, they moved back to England, where they went and they hired, with all their money, from a family called the Fisher family, a place that we now know as Croglin Hall. And it was a big hall, many rooms, set in great big huge lands. They were rich, wealthy people. And the father and the two brothers and their daughter Hannah moved to live in Croglin Hall. And things were going very well, and they enjoyed the life. It's a lovely part of the land to live in. But they hadn't been there for too long, only a matter of months before Hannah started to become somewhat poorly. We may have a name for it nowadays, but in those days it just seemed like a lethargy and always being tired. And through time she became wasted and pale and tired and not wanting to do anything. She was just around the house. Didn't matter how much good food she ate, how much fresh air she had, she just didn't want to do anything. And they could afford good food, they were wealthy. And time went on and Hannah became more and more pale and more tired, and got to the point where she didn't want to leave her room either. Now they were a wealthy family, and bear in mind this is 50-60 years before the National Health. They were a wealthy family and they could afford doctors, and they paid for doctors, the best doctors in the land. In fact, one doctor came up from London, from Harley Street, a young doctor, and he was the only one who actually could give any sort of explanation to what was wrong with Hannah. And even then he couldn't really explain what it is, but he did notice something that seemed odd. On the side of her neck was a small mark, like a cut, a wound that never healed. But this didn't explain why she was the way she was. It couldn't explain anything about her tiredness or her paleness. And autumn turned into winter, and the nights grew longer and darker and colder. And it became quite clear that Hannah was unlikely to last the winter. They all thought she was likely to die. And the two brothers thought that, well, to die alone is not good, and should Hannah be taken in the middle of the night, it would only be right that she had some company with her. So they decided between them that they were going to take it in turns and keep watch with her overnight, so that at least her family were with her when she finally died. And so